everyone, Christina here. Welcome to day 5 of the holiday card series for 2017. Today I'm using the Christmas Cheer Turnabout stamp set from Concord and Ninth. And I've never used one of these turnabout stamps before, so I'm actually going to be learning how to use it on camera, and I'll tell you my process. It's super easy, and it's a really cool idea. So you can download one of these guides at the Concord and Ninth website. If you have their packaging, if you still have the packaging from your stamp set, you'll have this guide on the back of the packaging. I have already put my stamp in a stamp pocket, so I didn't have the packaging anymore. So I just went to their website, and on the page for the stamp set, there's a link, and you can download that PDF and print it out. So what you do is you line up the stamp image over the guide area, and then you use a ruler and a permanent marker just to draw on this X. And this is on the flat side of the stamp, so you should be able to draw that on there fairly easily. And then I took my square piece of cardstock. This is cut to 6 by 6, and this is actually the cardstock I'm going to be stamping on, so I will eventually be erasing those pencil lines, but I just use a ruler to draw an X directly in the center of that piece of cardstock, and then I lined up my turnabout stamp directly over that inside my MISTI tool, and I have my cardstock pressed all the way down into the corner. So I'll just be stamping each turn just like that. So now I'm going to take the ink I'm using today, and I'm using some Onyx Black ink. This is VersaFine Onyx Black, and I'm actually going to make 2 different cards today. For this first card, I'm going to have all of my stamping here done in black, and this is just so I can kind of get an idea of how this turnabout stamp works. So I've pressed that down, and then I'm going to turn my cardstock, and I'm just turning mine counterclockwise. Ink up my stamp again, and then I'm going to stamp down, and it's going to put all those images in a different area. So this is really kind of cool. They've really thought the whole process out and made sure that as you turn it each time, you're not going to be stamping over any area where you've already stamped. So I'm going to turn this again for the second turn, and then once again I'm going counterclockwise. You always want to be turning in the same direction. And I'm going to make sure that's in the corner really tightly, and then I'll go ahead and stamp this again. So I've got one more turn, and then I'll have my entire pattern stamped. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this the last turn, and I'll ink up my stamp once again, and then I'll go ahead and press this down. And this is such a cool idea that you can have all of these images nestled in right next to each other, and you just had to stamp it 4 times. It's really kind of cool. So where these turnabout stamps really shine is when you change the ink color each time you turn. So I'm going to use 4 different colors of ink here. I'm starting out with Lipstick Red from Simon, and I'm going to have this be my very first color. I'm going to press that down really well, make sure I get a nice impression with this Lipstick Red ink. Then I'm going to clean off my stamp really well. I just used a baby wipe to clean it off, it worked fairly well, but if you wanted to, you could definitely use something a little bit stronger, like some Ultra Clean Stamp Cleaner from Hero Arts or the Simus Stamp Cleaner. I then moved to Green Leaf ink from Simon, and I've inked that up once again. I've also turned my cardstock counterclockwise, and then I'll press that down. And I'm going to have 2 different colors of ink on my background here with the same images. So I'm turning it for the second turn, and I've switched to Lake Shores ink, and this is actually kind of like a really pale blue, so it's not going to show up as blue as much on this craft cardstock, but I did really like it because it has kind of like a paler, kind of a more toned back color. For this last one, I'm just turning it one more time, and now I'm using some dark chocolate ink from Simon. And you'll be able to see how cool this is. You can have the 4 different colors of ink. I have this amazing background, and it looks really multidimensional with all those different colors. So now I'm going to take the black version. I'm going to do some additional stamping. The stamp set has all of these solid images so that you can stamp in the centers of these tiny little icons. So I'm going to use the same 4 colors of ink that I used before, and I'm going to just stamp all of the different images. And If you wanted to, you could put this cardstock piece back into your MISTI tool and position the stamps for the particular colors just right, and then do the whole turning thing if you wanted to. But I decided to just do it by hand since I was going to be changing colors fairly often. And I was also able to kind of, if you wanted to, you could actually change the colors every time you stamp each image, but I thought it would just be a little bit faster to keep the same images and then just turn the cardstock on my own, if that makes sense. So you can make this even faster if you want to, but I decided not to. I don't think I mentioned that the color of cardstock I'm using today is from Neenah. This is their Desert Storm cardstock, and this is the 100-pound version of their cardstock. And I just used the 100-pound version because I realized I was using the 100-pound more than anything else, and I couldn't justify keeping the 80-pound on hand anymore. So I mainly just have the 100-pound. So I'm taking my pencil and just erasing those center lines, the little X that I drew earlier. And then I trim down these pieces to be the same size as a standard size card front. So 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Eventually I will trim these down even more, but for now this is the size where they're at. So now I'm going to bring in this die from Concord and Ninth. This is the ribbon banner die, and it actually coordinates with the stamp set. I'm going to cut this out twice using some Neenah Solar White cardstock, and then I'm going to take the greetings or the word stamps from the stamp set, and I'm going to stamp them onto these banners using some lipstick red ink. And the words that are in the stamp set are angled just perfectly to nestle in on these banners. I think it's really kind of a fun idea, and you can mix up what words you're using or different phrases. I'm using Christmas cheer and winter wishes for mine. And I really think it'd be kind of fun if you had a winter wishes version where all of the stamping is in like different colors of blue, kind of really icy. I think that would be really cool. So now I'm prepping my card bases. I'm using some Neenah Solar White 110-pound cardstock. And this is when I decided to trim these down even a little bit more. So the finished size of these background pieces is 3 3/4 wide by 5 inches tall. I use some Tombow Extreme adhesive to adhere these down onto the centers of the cards. And then I'm going to put some foam adhesive on the back of the banners. And I just trimmed that foam tape down so it's a little bit more narrow, and then put one strip on the back of each of these banner sections. So I'll press that down. And then on this other colored one, I had a little overstamping, a little blip on that red present near the center. And it just turned out perfectly to have this banner directly over that area. So it kind of hid my little mistake. So those are the 2 cards for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. These cards could be easily replicated if you wanted to do a whole bunch of cards all with the same design. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with day 6 of the holiday card series. Just have to catch up since I missed a day last week. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.